Wanted to start tonight's show out with a story that I should have probably covered last week. It says the Cape Coast and Islands. I think this story's from up north somewhere, though, so I'm not exactly sure where the Cape is. But this story is not regional. It was very interesting. We had a gigantic heat wave. I guess it was about a week and a half ago, and it was maybe about a week ago, and a bunch of schools were letting out the students because they had no air conditioning in their area. They're not used to having those types of temperatures. And so they were letting the kids out of school. It says, coming off a hot Labor Day weekend, many students around the country had their return to classrooms cut short. Schools along the East Coast and in parts of the Midwest changed their schedules, in some cases sending students home early due to heat advisories and lack of air conditioning. Districts in New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin called for a half day on Tuesday to get students home before the temperatures peaked. At some schools in Pittsburgh and Baltimore, so Baltimore's not far from me, about 2-hour drive really, students were told to stay at home and log on for virtual learning. Alice Kirtley finished up her first day of fourth grade at 11 a.m. I'm sure Alice will never see this, but hey to Alice in the fourth grade. She says her teachers at Maryland Avenue Montessori are trying their best, but the classroom still gets really hot. Quote, they have fans and they open their windows a lot, but I would appreciate air conditioners. The reason I wanted to cover this is there's parts of the country where schools have never needed air conditioning before, and now that might be something they need to look at. That's obviously not a cheap undertaking, having to add air conditioning to all these schools, especially if this were to continue. Maybe it's just a fluke thing, or maybe this is going to happen again and again and again. We'll see. A district representative confirmed that 56% of Milwaukee's public schools offer full or partial air conditioning for students and staff, but that leaves almost half of the schools in the district without. It's not just Wisconsin. Lack of reliable air conditioning is a problem nationwide. A 2020 study from the U.S. Government Accountability Office found that an estimated 41% of districts needed to update or replace HVAC systems in at least half of their schools. Big city districts like Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh often have old school buildings and can't handle AC for one reason or another. So it's not just air conditioning. If they can't put the air conditioning there for one reason or another, then they've got to figure that out. Or they're going to have to build an entirely new school, an entire new building. In many cases, they try to find workarounds for a handful of hot days each year. His classroom does not have AC, and he's clocked temperatures as high as 90 degrees indoors. Even with the early release, everyone is walking out of that building sweaty and exhausted. Pretty crazy story. I do wonder what this means for the future. What are some of the solutions these schools are going to come up with? Will they need to build new buildings? Will they need to put air conditioning in all parts of the school? Or maybe they'll just do it in phases, just put air conditioning in this part of the school and maybe move the kids there until they can do the entire school, or however they do it. But I just thought it was interesting. Some of you guys that join us on this show, you live in parts of the country that this is taking place. So I feel bad for the kids, if they're having to be sent home, they're there to learn and they're not able to because of the air conditioning.